everyone, and welcome back to our channel. We are Millennial and Mom. If you don't know who is who, I'm Millennial. This is Mom. If you're OG, welcome back. How you been? Hopefully you've been well. If you are also new, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to our channel because we do Married at First Sight reviews. We do all the reviews. We also do live, so watch out for that. But we're not here for all that other stuff. We're here to talk about episode 3 of season 15, Married at First Sight, San Diego. Now, I feel like we should just go ahead and jump right into it because once again, we know how these episodes go. If you're an OG fan of Married at First Sight, that they always take forever to get to the honeymoons because they always draw out the wedding. So the weddings, of course, were not as eventful. We had one couple, Morgan and Ben, who are still not married because Ben allegedly has the COVID. And who are we going to start off with, Mom?
Well, we're going to start off with Kristen and Mitch. And you know what? This episode is Ain't No Wedding Like a West Coast Wedding.
I mean, what made it any different than any other wedding? Because they didn't do nothing special. I didn't hear no West Coast music. I didn't hear nothing. I just heard the regular stuff. No one did no dances. I mean, San Diego's not the Bay Area, so they weren't going to get hyphy or nothing. But I digress. If you don't know, we live on the West Coast.
You did digress. So, moving in, Kristen and Mitch. So, we start back up with Kristen, and she's still talking to her dad about, this is not going to be what he thought was going to be, like just a regular party, but this is actually a hey surprise wedding. So she's asking him, she really wants his blessing, and he's telling her, this is insane, and why would you do this?
Before you get it all into your spiel, I'm just very interested in how would you feel if you thought you were just going to a regular party and I'm just like, hey, it's my wedding day.
First of all, I would know something was up with the camera crew. Like, when do you ever have a camera crew at a party of yours? So
it's a big special party.
And you know what? If I had to come out and be like, I know this isn't Married at First Sight up in here. Is that what you have to tell me? Because if you've been with us for a long time, you know how I feel about that. Even though you're of age to do it yourself, don't surprise me. I don't like surprises like that.
You don't.
So I digress.
I wouldn't do that. But it was like good TV though.
I digress. So after the spiel, Kristen's dad finally comes around to giving her his blessing. So that was good. That made Kristen feel better. And she was really thinking maybe she wasn't going to get married if she couldn't get her dad's blessing. But you know what? We've heard that before on different seasons, and they go ahead with the marriage anyway.
They signed the contract.
So we see Mitch getting ready. And the reason why I mentioned that, because we saw a little bit of that last week, even though we saw him standing at the altar last week too. But they go back to showing him get dressed. And I know that some of our commenters noticed that Mitch seemed like he was a groomzilla. And I didn't necessarily see it last week, but I definitely see it this week. And, he's still talking about how his beard is cut too short, things like that. Just minor things, even though he did say, yeah, it's the aesthetic pretty much of how he feels about himself. So I get that, because as part of his appearance, it takes a little while to grow his beard out, I guess. But so
pause.
Yeah.
You know what just hit me? This whole episode, when he finally does get to see his wife, when we start mentioning about that, he talks about how, he wants someone basically plain Jane, no makeup, no heels, the wedding dress was, too much, and he's worried about his appearance. He got his nerve.
Well, so now he's finally at the altar, and friends and family start walking in. So her mom walks in and said, I thought it was a cute pink dress. She looked well put together. She looked classy and stuff like that. And he asked, like, oh my God, who's that? Is that my wife? They're like, no, that's the bride's mom. He's like, oh, thank you. I guess he thought that was too much, because touching back onto what you said about the wedding dresses, when he finally saw his wife, Kristen, when she walked down the aisle, I noticed right then and there, even in my notes, I'm like, there was no real spark. I didn't see a spark in the eye, because that's something that I look for. Is there some type of connection when they walk down the aisle? He didn't seem to have that. He had a smile, but it wasn't like, But we go on to find out that he likes a more natural woman, this and that. But if you remember, Kristen said in her specials that, what she was naming off for Mitch wasn't it. But somehow she came around and liked his vibe or whatever. So see how that kind of like flip-flopped? He just thought she was okay after all that.
Yeah, she's like really smitten from what I'm seeing. And he wants someone who's like a Whole Foods, a pita person, but yeah, he's worried about his appearance. But you know what? We just have to see how it goes, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So I I guess Mitch is still talking about his worst case scenario when it comes down to it. And I think maybe it sounds like he's kind of like pre-sabotaging himself going along, because he's admitted that he's never been in a long-term relationship. Him and Miguel have both admitted that previously. But I mean, at least Miguel is trying to come around to things. But we see Mitch and Kristen, after they get married, they're talking, trying to get to know each other. We learn that she learns he's an environmentalist. He finds out what she does for a living, and then she goes, oh, I have my recyclable cup. So right there, I was thinking, okay, Mitch, maybe that helps you out with that, because she takes her recyclable cups that you like to make the scene, you know, going on with that. And then I'll just jump to the reception part. So I don't know, the dance was awkward, the wedding photos was awkward, and I think it was awkward based off of Mitch, because
Well, Kristen didn't think so.
but she didn't think so. I thought so. This is our opinions of the review of the show. But I think Kristen was.
She was just in the moment, whereas he was more so nitpicking at everything that he didn't like, and that what his expectations were. I will give him some credit, because we always have to do that.
Yeah.
He was acknowledging the fact that he has in the past, set higher expectations of people, and they never met those expectations. So he put that on himself, like, that's a fault in me.
Yeah.
But when it came down to him talking to her mom, and he said, I don't really believe in a love at first sight thing. I was instantly like, then why are you here?
Well, that's what her mother said. She said, why are you here? And he said, well, because I'm in my late 30s. Just everything you think of, the places he feels he should be by now in life. But he brought it to the experts to help him pretty much find his way and find his wife. But I just think, like I said, I didn't see the Groomzilla, but I do now. And I think, I don't necessarily have I'm not making any predictions. I don't have it set too high for this couple, just based on every other thing that he's brought out more of his personality and the reasons why he's here. Because that doesn't, like you said, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. Now, also at the reception, the friends and family ask, just different questions that they always ask, and it's typical, how are you going to treat this, what are you going to do, blah blah blah. But then when they got to the end of the night, because we're not going to go into detail on all that,
there was another standout for me with him and her mom, when he was like, I'm not like a financial based person, I'm a mission based person,
mission substance based.
He wants to have a goal that's not financial, and she was like, well, I think she more would want to have like somebody stable. So that's also going to be another barrier within that relationship.
Oh, yeah.
So that was basically it with them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's already kind of rocky from his side, not her side.
Already. All right. She don't know it yet, but she's going to find out.
She's going to find out real quick.
Real quick. Now let's move to Lindy and Miguel. And so, they're already married. So Lindy, Miguel, Stasi and Nate, Alexis and Justin are basically, we're seeing their receptions, how they're getting along with each other, the conversation they're having with friends and family, how the conversation with each other. So that's what this is about. With
I got a question
the
for you.
Fallen couples. Yes.
So when Lindy is talking about Miguel, seeing him for the first time, and she saw his blazer, she was like, oh my gosh, he's so fashion forward. Did you get that? Did you get fashion forward from Miguel in that blazer?
No. I didn't. I got regular blazers. I mean, they wear what they want to wear. So, I mean, if that's his fashion sense. I mean, we did first meet Miguel wearing a costume. So, I didn't get that. Okay. All right. So, Lindy and her, they're at the wedding and, at the receptions. And they do the first dance, things like that. And Lindy doesn't know how to dance or slow dance, none of that stuff, because of her religious background. So she's kind of awkward about it, and she's telling Miguel, like, what do I do? How do I do this? And he's talking her through.
Miguel's very comforting. I so far like them as a couple, because even when we saw them, at their little benchmark, I don't know what it's called, eating, and she asked him if he knows to speak Spanish. Of course, he knows how to speak Spanish, and she was like, I studied in Spain, and she wants to learn more. He just seems like he's gonna nurture her, which, as we had in our lives before, if you are new, make sure you check out our lives. Also, some of our viewers said that's not really a good thing for him, because that's what he usually does in the past. And she might walk over him.
But one of the things that I felt was interesting with this couple, Not just with their first dance, not with their pictures that I thought looked really nice last week and things like that. Just when they got to the topic of conversation with the families.
Yes.
That was the most interesting with me for them, because
they're on two different spectrums.
Because her family just came out and was like, listen, do you believe in religion? Do you believe in higher power? And Miguel's like, not really, you know, but who am I to say what you believe isn't right and this and that? And her brother's like, well, you know, I prayed for somebody, a good man to be for my sister. And Miguel's just kind of like sitting there. And one of the ladies, I'm not sure, maybe her sister or sister-in-law, somebody was looking like, oh my goodness. I mean, she was like I can't believe this, you know? So I think that might be a small hindrance as well. But I think, even though I believe that Lindy has removed herself from the religion part of it, the controlling part of it, it's still in her mind. It's still in her, just based off the things that she's saying. But I also think she rebels for that too. Yeah. With the things that she says and does. Because remember, in the beginning, they were like, oh, well, that's just Lindy. I think Lindy's like going against the grain when it comes to that. So she, you know, so that might be an issue for Lindy, not Miguel. Yeah. But for their relationship. And then Miguel's friends and the family. Sister. Well, excuse me, Miguel's friends and then his sister talked to Lindy. And I wrote in my notes, like, when his sister was talking to her, she was talking to her like matter of fact. Like, you know, you need to be there for my brother kind of thing. That's exactly what I wrote. You know, and we find out why.
Communication skills and different things like that. And then we learned about the background of their family. The mom wasn't really there. Dad wasn't really there. So we kind of like picked him up from the bootstraps to be who he is today. Yeah. I don't know about the sister. Like, I can see the sister and her brother going at it. Because they're very two strong-minded people, and they both seem like they're pretty much set in their ways, and there's no flexible wiggle room. And Lindy and Miguel are like the two like free-spirited people. But I can see Lindy being persuaded by the talks of her family, because she really wants her family to be there. Whereas Miguel, you know, he really only has his sister and his friends. So yeah. It's not a strong component for Miguel. So I can see that being an issue with them. Right, so let's just jump into Justin and Alexis. Now, last week I forgot to mention in the review, sorry about that, you all, that Justin had mentioned to Alexis that he had been celibate for 3 years, and she shouted to everybody while they were doing their first dance, oh my God, he's celibate. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? That was, to me, that embarrassing, yes, but that's just something he told you in confidence. That's not something for you to blurt out. Now, not just with that, but just as conversations that they've had along the way and conversations that Alexis has had with the women group or the girl group previously to this, I think Alexis, well, has a little stronger personality than Justin's. And I think she's used to talking over. She's used to talking over and just being more, kind of like more alpha in a relationship. Domineering. Yeah, and her blurting out that secret, like, what else can't you keep? Like, to me, that was personal. Like, I told you this is not for everyone to know. Like, what else are you going to say out loud that I'm telling you in confidence? Because that's nothing to share if you understand what I'm trying to say. You know? Yeah. So, so they're talking. They, as friends and family do. The scene that stands out is Justin's brother. Remember, he was so against Justin getting married and just going through this process in general. I think it was this process first and then getting married, because you don't know her. So clearly it seems like Justin may have been hurt before in the past and he hasn't been in too many serious relationships. I think that's where his brother was coming from. Yeah. But his brother did apologize and say, well, you know, you're grown now. Well, you're always grown, but you know, you've done it now. And talking with Alexis from conversations, because they didn't really show too much of it last week. They showed clips of it this week. How she was saying, you know, I'm not into hurt anybody, but hey, we've heard that before too. Hopefully she's not. And I'm really rooting for the couples to win or get something out of this experience. Yes, you know, for themselves first as well. If it doesn't work out, but I don't know. Well, I'm not sure if this is really. I want it to be a match. Not sure. Go ahead. My favorite part was when Justin said, you know, if they don't like her, they're gonna have to suck it up. Suck it up, buttercut. That's what he tells us. You know, Justin does have a sarcastic side, and then Alexis, I can see that too, but sarcastic people. But his friends say that he's sensitive, and I can see that. Yeah. I can see him being sensitive, and I can see Alexis being
Bossy.
that one to push him. But I just want to say that scene, you know, when they take that garter off.
Girl, let me tell you what I wrote. I wrote, is this the reverse of a lingerie just with your clothes on? Because he was giving it to you Chippendale
You
style.
thought he was giving it because I
Chippendale style?
No.
On his
I
own,
thought
yeah.
he was real stiff on that floor, scooting like a dog. No, that was not cute at all. I felt embarrassed.
Not
for
scoop
Alexis.
like a dog. Don't say that. That's not nice.
That's what it looked like. I can't compare it any other way.
In his mind, I looked at he was trying to give it to her. That's the way he was giving to her with his shirt on. I said the reverse Olajuwon. That's what I said.
Well, in the end, when we see them, because they are the last scene of the episode, to me it looks like they're getting along pretty well. She looks like she's being a little soft, unless she's a little tipsy, with her head on his shoulder. Look like, you know, they might be doing something a little bit later on. You never know.
But you know what I've noticed about these couples, and we'll get into Stasi and Nate. I've noticed on this season so far, from what we've seen so far, that a few women come across a lot more domineering or bossy. I shouldn't say bossy, a lot more domineering. Bossy is not the right word. And the men come across a lot more, I don't know, a few of them bring a little more issues to the table. Everyone has issues, but there seems like there's like specific people that's bringing specific issues and specific something to the table, more so than last episode. Because last season it was Lindsay. So there's a few people that's specific on the men and the women's side to me for this season. But now let's talk about Stasi and Nate. I still can't put my finger on Nate, but I will say that his one friend who we see towards the end, the female, the girl, I don't know, she's giving vibes like, you know.
Well, before we get on to that, let's just start from the top.
All right, go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right, so once again, let me go to my notes. We pick back up where Stasi is talking about she feels like a schoolgirl.
She seems like she feels really comfortable with him.
That's what she said, but as the episode went on, I didn't get as comfortable as she portrayed it to be. Yeah. She says right now everything's all right. She don't see any real red flags. She wants to keep things light and right. I said, okay, light and right. That's good for now, you know, till you gradually get to know someone. Yes.
Well, she asked him, you know, do you want to move out of San Diego? He's like, you know, I'm willing to move because she wants to move, have a couple houses, different places. You know, she wants to be that power couple.
Yep. And I think that Nate has ambitions to be someone in a certain scene too, maybe with his new stock trader thing. I still want to know how he got into that. But I think that because he used the word power couple, so I think he has the same ambitions. But since Stasi is already there, I just don't like to be reminded. And if I don't like to be reminded, I'm sure people in the group don't want to be reminded about your houses, your this, your that. We get it. Congratulations. I said it. Congratulations, Stasia. Seriously, you are successful. However, that's the issue. That for me, that may be a huge issue, to be reminded constantly.
Well, I got a question for you, because I couldn't be millennial without bringing this up. So they were talking about their age limits. Her age limit was about 33.
Something like that.
And his was between 27 and 34.
She said, I just made it, or I almost didn't make it, something like that.
And he said that Pastor Cal said, you know, if you want someone who's like a boss, who's like up there in life, how do you want someone who's 27? I take offense to that. You could be a boss at 27.
Well, you're not 27.
It doesn't matter.
You about to be.
He could still have
next
someone
year.
who was a boss. So
That's true.
That was shade, Pastor Cal.
That's true. You'll be 27 next year, and you've done really well for yourself.
That's shade.
Congratulations. I appreciate that. You've learned something. But that is shade. You can be. It depends on what you do, how you did it, how your success is. You can be a boss. I mean, with this day and age, with YouTube, TikToks, and everything else, you can go up there at a very young age. But I still, on the other hand of that side of that, I can see what Pastor Cal is saying. Maybe they're not at the maturity level that he's looking for. I don't know.
Shade just getting thrown to
No,
us
it's not shade. But I get it. I can see what you mean by that. So who knows? But as the night goes on, you know, they talk to their friends and family. Again, that's what the reception and get to know each other was about.
Yes, and before, I know you want to get into his friend, his one friend. When Stasia went to go talk to his male friends, and they asked her, you know, how do you feel about the female friends, I do believe.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's cool. He can have female friends as long as there are boundaries. Now, he got his set of boundaries, and I got my set of boundaries. So she wants to work on her set of boundaries. So later on within the episode, when they are sitting down, and then there's this other lady, I didn't catch her name, but she's sitting down with them. And all of a sudden, she just starts talking to Stasia, and Stasia's looking like, who is this? And then she's like, oh, I'm so-and-so. And then he's like, oh, yeah, this is so-and-so. Like, how did you just forget to mention someone to your new wife on the day of your wedding? I just want to know, it could be an accident. Don't think so.
Don't think so. You know what? As we saw before they got married, Nate lives with a few females. I believe there's a male too. And apparently they're close. They play games, they hike, this
her
and
name's
that.
Megan.
And then Megan, they flashed to Megan when they got married. Because Megan was like teary-eyed and everything else. And she was teary-eyed while she was talking to Stasia about, I'm just so happy for my friend. We're like a family.
We have game nights.
Right, we got trivia or charades or whatever. And we want you to join. We want you to do this. And yeah, he like sunset, this and that. And then production went back to where, he said in his vows, I like sunsets, things like that. So clearly Megan's gone on some sunsets. Now, normally, in a traditional sense, if you do things like that or have done things like that, sunsets are normally like a romantic type thing. So I can see maybe how Stasia was like, oh, y'all have done sunsets. That's what kind of like the vibe I was getting, because Stasia's face kind of like dropped a little bit. When
it didn't drop. It was just like, oh, really? Word? Because then.
But that's dropping to me.
Dropping to me is like if you're like sad, like, She was like,
Okay.
Game nights. Like, oh, we got to cut down on those game nights.
Yeah.
And then they look like,
Right.
Like, what you mean? Like, we're not cutting down the game nights.
Right.
Now, Mom, you have been a married woman.
Right.
How would you feel about your spouse doing those types of things with his female friends?
Before we got married?
When you're married. Like, now you're married to this person.
Oh, no. There could be some game nights at our house. Right, with us doing it, but there's no going out to do game nights, this charades, this and that, watching sunsets with someone else. No, I mean, unless there was a specific hobby that you was in and they happen to be into, like a baseball, volleyball, soccer, something, where you had to be with them all the time like that to practice stuff. That's different. But now that you're married, it's a different dynamic, so they have to work on that type of dynamic together. But when Nate was talking to her family, or whoever he was talking to, he was telling them that he had the same goals in mind about business and climbing and elevating himself. So again, we'll have to see with the journeys. But that was pretty much for the receptions, all that, because Nate didn't really say too much that I thought was interesting that added to what he wanted to do. Honestly, he was more listening than talking.
Well, he wants to know who said he's a freak of the sheets.
Well, that's what I was getting to. I was about to say towards the end of the night,
he wants to
we
know.
saw all their friends meet up with the couples individually, talk about what they were saying. And yeah, who said the freak in the sheets? Like I said in the video last week, family. That's what you want Stasia to know?
Well, hey, maybe they'll keep her around.
Well, she'll find out, because Stasia said she'll find out. And who was it? Lindy's friend, or Lindy's friend, I think, just blunted out and said, so you just gonna, she dropped the F-bomb. And I was like, all right, y'all. Well, they'll find, I'm sure they'll tell you, because, you gonna ask again, and we're gonna hear about something again when the friends and family meet up after the honeymoons, and I'm sure that's the next step. So, that's pretty much the end of this episode. Next week, hopefully, we'll see Ben and Morgan get married, and the rest of the team will be rest of the couples will be going on their honeymoons, and perhaps Ben and Morgan will join them on day 2 of the honeymoon. So.
Well, how do you feel about this episode?
This episode was a filler episode as usual. I just like to jump to the honeymoons. That's what I'm looking forward to. This episode was regular. What do you think?
I agree with you. It was regular. But we want to know how you guys felt about this episode. How do you feel about Nate doing hikes with his friend Megan? Is that a problem? And how do you feel about Kristen and Mitch, especially Mitch having his conundrum he had today? What do you think about Alexis and Justin? We're curious. We want to know. So please let us know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for joining us in this week's episode. We will be back in next week for Married at First Sight. Hopefully we are going down the honeymoon lane officially and not half the episode as they normally do.
Right.
So yeah, Mom, go ahead and sign us off.
Thank you all again for watching. And as always, live simply, be grateful.